Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and I am your host, Frank Aiken. We've got an exciting show in store for you this morning. We're going to talk about the end of Title 42 and what that means for us locally, but also nationally. And a little bit later on, we're going to talk to Kirk House. He's the director of the Steuben County Historical Society. I just received my new newsletter from them the other day. So we're going to talk about some of the fun activities they have coming up, what they're doing at the Steuben County Historical Society. Actually, I'll take a second here, put up my contact information, because we've got a star-studded lineup next week as well, and I thought I would highlight that in just a second so you can prepare, get your calendars, grab your pens, so that you can write down next week's lineup. Where do you see this? On Monday, Caleb Slater. Many of you may know him, and I say that because so many people wrote to me after he spoke at the SCOPE meeting. He's running for New York State Senator in the 48th District. Now, that's a little out of our area, of course, but the reason he's going to be on the program is he's from Dundee originally. His parents live in Corning. He's trying to change that seat to a Republican seat. So we're going to talk to him on Monday. Tuesday, Pat Kane. So many people know Pat Kane. He's been playing music and entertaining us for years in the area. He's going to join us on Tuesday to talk not just about his musical career, but also bringing back the tradition of the Grange Halls. You remember the Grange Halls? Well, he's got an active one going in Addison, so we're going to be talking with him. On Wednesday, Ed Brophy. He is the director of the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, New York. Not that far down the road. They have their induction ceremony coming up very shortly. So he's going to tell us about the induction, the Boxing Hall of Fame, how they survived during COVID. And if you didn't know, that's right in our backyard, and it's a fun place to visit, especially, of course, mostly, if you are a boxing fan. And then Thursday, Bath Mayor Mike Sweet. And then on Friday, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, which I mentioned yesterday. We're going to talk about the New York State budget and the end of the session. So Phil Palmisano will be joining us Friday of next week. So there you go. We're booked up already. If you know anyone that would like to be on the program, there is our contact information on the screen, and also you can weigh in on the program. We've been receiving a lot of great emails, texts, phone calls. So yesterday, and I almost have to take a break already, but yesterday one of our main discussions was the town hall. And by the way, somebody sent this to me, a viewer, and I can't thank them enough. Let's see if I'm going to pop it through. Thank you for your national news coverage, which was yesterday's program. The major news outlets are unwatchable to me. Wow, I'm a huge fan. Well, thank you so much. And I promise when I post these online, or I put these up on the screen, they're not just always going to praise the show, but I do appreciate that one, because yesterday was a lot more national than what we normally do, but it was kind of the nature of the beast, if you will, because of the CNN town hall. And if you watched yesterday, you know my prediction was that they did this early. Had the town hall with former President Trump on CNN. They did it early because then they could see the backlash from their liberal viewers. They could say in their media coverage, well, it was nothing but lies. They don't have to give specifics. They can just say that. It was nothing but lies. We could not fact check him in real time the way that we wanted to. So we can't give him, and this was a word that was used a lot yesterday, we cannot continue to give him this platform. Remember, that kept coming up. If he's not going to respect the platform. So my theory is this was a way to kind of already signal that they're not going to give him the coverage that he got back in 2016. That they're not going to cover his rallies. They're not going to hold town halls. They're not going to give him this kind of untethered coverage. Because why else, and this is where I got my theory from, why else would they have the whole crowd stacked with Republicans on CNN, not normally a friendly place for Republicans? Why would they have it stacked with Republicans and give, as Meghan McCain said, basically an infomercial to the former president? So I think it's interesting where this leads. I don't look at it necessarily from the substance of the town hall or what was said, what wasn't said. I look at it more of why did the media do this and how are they going to use this towards their end goals? And it seems as if the coverage has kind of echoed that. So when we come back, I'm just going to touch on it really quickly, and then we're going to get to the biggest issue of the day, which is the end of Title 42, which happened just last night. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Marcus Street in Corning. So we're talking just a little bit more about the town hall from the other night on CNN. Instantly, Jake Tapper came out and said this was nothing but lies. It was almost unwatchable. Anderson Cooper saying yesterday that you have a right to never watch them again after that. That's his own network. So Trump has actually had to respond as well, because some people are saying, why would you do this? Why would you actually help CNN? And he probably did help. I mean, CNN's been struggling. The moderator is now becoming the host of Don Lemon's old time slot. So Trump's firing back and saying, I was happy to do it. I got the word out to millions of people that would generally not hear this point of view concerning things such as the border, inflation, the economy, energy independence, the Afghanistan catastrophe, and more. And I do think that's a good point, not just from any political party, that you can't always just go to friendly locations, right? If you can't just always preach to the choir. But he said CNN is taking a lot of heat. That's true. AOC, she was going just mad on Twitter. So many other prominent liberals saying, why would they do this? Why would they give them this platform? Remember, that's going to be a key term that's used a lot. I think CNN did the right thing by putting me on, said the former president. All you have to do is look at their fantastic ratings. It was an honor to do it. Now, Oliver Darcy, media reporter, said it's hard to see how America was served by the spectacle of lies that aired on CNN. It felt like 2016 all over again. That's going to be the interesting point. They just keep saying lie after lie, just lie. So that gives them the opportunity to say that we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to give the front runner of the Republican ticket any more coverage. It's a kind of an excuse they've been looking for, and that's why I wondered why they were doing this so early in the season. So maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe history will prove me wrong, but boy, it doesn't seem it. Now, the CNN chairman, Chris Licht, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, said, I absolutely, unequivocally believe America was served very well by what we did last night. This was yesterday. People woke up and they know what the stakes are in this election in a way they didn't the day before. So he was defending the moderator. He was also defending the fact that they gave the former president this platform. So it's interesting that they've had to go into full defense mode. Even President Trump, both sides, going into full defense mode. I would love to hear what you thought of it. I know that was a couple days ago, so we're going to move on because the biggest story is the end of Title 42. But first, I have to take a break, and then when we come back, the end of Title 42, and we'll be talking to Kirk House in just a little bit as well, the director of the Steuben County Historical Society. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. We're going to be talking to Kirk House in just a moment. Stay with us for that. But before that, the end of Title 42. Boy, there's a lot to cover here. Yesterday, we mentioned on the program that Chemung County has issued a state of emergency. Many counties have followed suit. Some had done before as well. Governor Hochul not exactly sure how to handle that. Yesterday, calling it potentially unconstitutional. But let's take a look at some of the stories before we get to the local aspect of this. So federal agents were placed on standby in case of riots at the border. After days of panic, with thousands of migrants crossing over the southern border in a last-minute attempt to claim asylum before the rules changed, Title 42 has ended. Pardon me. In the final hours before the pandemic-era measure expired, forces along the border fortified their posts with barbed wire, concrete barriers, and heavily armed teams patrolling their front lines. We know the president warned that it is going to be chaotic for a while. Listen to this. Despite Customs and Border Patrol apprehending over 10,000 people daily this week, that's 10,000 people daily this week, there were an estimated 155,000. Let me read that again. 155,000 people still waiting in North Mexico with the intention of making it into the U.S. Now, Texas officials had warned of up to 13,000 people a day attempting to make it into the U.S. after Title 42 ended. Asylum seekers will now be processed under the earlier Title 8 measure instead. So I don't think chaos, but really, if you listen to the administration, they say chaos, but then other times they say everything's fine at the border. Everything's hunky-dory. But migrants are allowed into the U.S., this also from the New York Post, as asylum seekers are given immigration court dates, some starting in the year. Here, you've got to show up for court, immigration court. Here's the paperwork. Your court date is 2035. Just in case you're not aware, it is the year 2023. So 2035. If you could show up to court, we'd really appreciate it. Now that they have been admitted into the country and given a court date, the migrants can receive a work permit and legally live and work in the U.S. until their case comes up. Some were as late as 2032 as well, 2035 in Chicago and Florida. Others who had immigration court hearings set for August of this year. You got to feel kind of upset if you got to August of 2023 when your buddy got 2035. Others, March of 2027. This was just the New York Post going around and asking people about their court date. 2 people heading to New York City had dates listed for 2025. Listen to this number. I know numbers aren't the best to just read, but backlogs at immigration courts currently stand at 2.1 million cases waiting to be heard. Wow. So does that mean there's 2.1? Well, yeah, I guess that would mean that exact thing. So one way, I don't know, I know Greg Abbott, Texas governor, and many others are, that's why we're having the issue upstate as well, because they're busing the migrants upstate. Oh, we've got our guests coming in. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we come back. Well, let's take that short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the M.A. Neal Financial Services interview section of our program. And joining me in the studio this morning, Kirk House. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Oh, thanks for having me, Frank.
Of course. You're the director of the Steuben County Historical Society. And I look here, I just got my new newsletter. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But tell us the mission of the Historic Society.
Well, the mission of the Historical Society is to look into the human history, the human activity that's gone on here in Steuben County, even back before it was Steuben County,
right.
but especially since then, and to get some understanding of that.
Well, and that's what's so interesting about the newsletter. I generally look forward to it because you guys really go in depth with your research. How do you get your research? I mean, we think of libraries. Is that even useful anymore, I assume?
Oh, sure. Libraries are very useful because we're in the old Bath Library, right next door to the new Bath Library.
So you're sandwiched in. You're perfect.
Right. We work together as much as we can. So, we have our own historical library. And, of course, then there are also documents, historical records, and archives. Some of them held by the municipalities or by the county or whatever.
Okay. How much work goes into a newsletter? How much time do you think you spend on it, you and the other writers?
Okay, good question. Yeah. We call it a newsletter. It's actually a 24-page quarterly magazine.
It is, yeah.
Probably be a better way of putting it.
I agree.
And, rather than bake sales or something like that, most of it is historical articles. And it's kind of free and easy what it's going to be every month or every quarter. Kind of depends on what work has been done. So a lot of people work on it. So to fill 24 pages is quite a lot of research and writing.
That's what I mean.
But then there's a lot of editorial work and composition and layout that goes on. Plus, of course, the printer does a few things, too.
Yeah, of course. And the pictures are great, too.
They are,
You
yeah.
get amazing pictures. Do you get a lot of help with the newsletter? Because it's not just you, right?
Right. What I do is I write a fair amount of stuff.
Yeah.
Other people write it as well.
Okay.
And then one of our board members, Nedra McElroy, pretty much handles the layout and composition side of things, just as Helen Brink did before her.
I wanted to tell you, and I meant to mention this off the air, but Christine Frizzell, who wrote The Boys of Bath, we had her on the program.
Oh, did you really?
She sang your praises and said how great you are at the Historical Society. She said it was wonderful. So recently you had a couple lectures, and I know you have upcoming lectures in the near future. Could you tell us about those?
Yeah, we have a historic walk in Savona first Friday in June at 4 o'clock, and then in Cohocton first Friday in August.
Okay.
And then in between there, or really I guess after that, later on in August, we operate the one-room school at the Steuben County Fair.
Oh, okay. Now, what's a walk entail? What do you do on the walk?
Okay, well, we'll meet, in the Savona case, we'll meet at the library parking lot.
Okay.
There in Route 415.
Sure.
And we'll take a walk through the village. We'll stop and look at some of the interesting sites.
Okay.
Some cases we'll talk about the architecture of the building.
Oh, okay.
Some cases about the history of the building or the people who live there. We'll go into the Seamen's Cemetery, where there are, I think, 77 Civil War veterans buried there.
Oh, wow.
We won't look at every one of them, but we'll talk a little bit about the history of the town as seen through its cemetery.
Well, and you guys you stay pretty active. How much, I seem like I asked this question to everybody, but how much did COVID affect your operations?
Oh, quite a lot.
Yeah. Well,
Obviously, we were shut down as everybody else was. The good thing was that as far as conducting research and that sort of thing, that could still go on.
Yeah, sure.
I could do some of that at home, or I could go into the building and be there pretty much by myself and do the work there. But of course, we didn't have people coming in to do research on their own and so forth until we were able to fully reopen. How
do you say, and thank you for to everybody with the society for preserving our history, because I think it's so important. It's the old saying about forgetting your history, but how do you stay so passionate about it personally?
Well, I guess I'm excited about it for a couple of reasons. First of all, I like stories.
They're great stories.
One of the ways we put it is saving Steuben stories and telling Steuben tales.
That's a great way of putting it.
So the people are always fascinating and always interesting.
Yeah.
And now, having said that, we're not a nostalgia society.
Right.
Sometimes people expect that. But just as in every place else, a lot of ugly things happened here as well. And so that's part of our history, and we try to face that unflinchingly.
Well, wasn't that part of your lecture recently?
Yes, I did a lecture on slavery in Steuben County, which took me a couple of years to research. The output of it is 40-some pages.
Wow.
That's not what I read in the lecture, but that's all the information that I gathered.
Yeah.
And slavery existed in New York up until the 4th of July in 1827. So there was quite a history of slavery here, not as big as in a lot of other places, but still shouldn't be overlooked.
Right. And there's a lecture coming up soon, isn't there?
The historical walks in
the walk is different.
in the summer, and then the next lecture will be in September, which we have not nailed down exactly who that's going to be yet.
Okay. And you also have, I know this is a ways away, but you know how time flies, the Local History Awareness Week in October.
Local History Awareness Week is coming up in October, and that is actually conducted by the Steuben County historian, whose offices are across the hall from us in the McKee House of the old Davenport Library. So we try to work together as much as we can, as you'd expect in a setting like that. But also we help out with the History Awareness Week, just as she supports our activities.
Of course. How does someone become a member of the Steuben County Historical Society?
It is a demanding focus of giving us $20 and your address is about what it amounts to. And it will go up to $25 next year.
Next year. So warning, just be prepared. And what I liked is I signed up late last year because I had just learned about it, and you sent me all the past issues from the year. So you don't miss out.
So if you were to sign up now, you'd get the previous issues. until they're run out, of
Right,
course.
of course. Do you need volunteers with the Historical Society?
Yes, we use volunteers. People could call us or write in if they're interested in that, and we can talk about what kinds of things that they're interested in doing. Some stuff can be done by people at home.
Sure.
That went on during the COVID as well.
Yeah, people are used to that, working from home.
Yeah. So some people do their work sort of by computer and mail it in, so to speak.
Right, and we were talking off the air, but you have an online presence as well.
Yes, two places in particular. One is our Facebook page.
Okay.
And the slogan we use there is a new old photo every business day.
Oh, that's great.
So it focuses on photography and pictures of Steuben County, sometimes something current, but usually a historic photo. And every business day we have a photo and just a short commentary, 3, 4, 5 sentences telling something about it. And the other is our our YouTube presence.
Oh, okay.
We have a Steuben County Historical Society channel, and we have about half a dozen videos up there currently.
Oh, that's great.
One of them is a slightly abridged version of the presentation on slavery.
Oh, okay.
A couple of them are sort of music videos.
Oh, neat.
Brad Ordway singing The Sweet Vale of Avoca
very neat.
with historic photos of Avoca interspersed.
Oh, isn't that neat?
And also Brad singing a very sad song, The Faded Coat of Blue, which is about a soldier lost in the Civil War. And with that, we put up photos of Steuben men who died or were damaged in the Civil War.
Wow. So you guys are very busy.
Oh, we try to be.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So I said I'm not going to ask you any tough questions, but I'm going to throw you for one right now.
Okay.
What's the most interesting fact about Steuben County that we may not know?
Oh, boy, most interesting fact about Steuben County that we may not know. That's a very good question. One thing a lot of people don't know, today Steuben County is bigger than my home state of Rhode Island.
Okay. Wow.
In fact, it's pushing the size of Delaware, so it's big enough to be a state.
Yeah.
Which is kind of challenging sometimes
Yes,
when you're
challenging.
the historians for that. But a lot of people don't know Steuben used to be much bigger. It stretched all the way over to Seneca Lake.
Oh, wow.
It included the Keuka Bluff and went farther up on the East Branch.
Okay.
It included the counties of Allegheny, the towns of Allegheny that run straight down our western border, and the towns in Livingston like Sparta and Canasarega and North Dansville that are up in that corner. So parts of Allegheny and Livingston and Yates and Schuyler County were originally in Steuben before those counties were created.
Wow, that's a big chunk of New York State right there.
It really is, yeah.
I mean, it's already a big county. But, well, thank you so much for being on the program. Before we go, what's the best way to contact you if people want to volunteer, become a member, or donate? I'm sure you can always use donations.
Okay, sure. Well, our mailing address is 1 Conhockton Street in Bath. And then our email address is steuben349@yahoo.com.
Okay.
But if you look for our Facebook page, you'll have the information there.
And when I say donations, of course, you can always use cash. There's a lot of undertaking with this.
Definitely that.
But do you ever take donations of historic items?
We do. We do. And we have to kind of regulate that in some ways. First of all, there's only so much space that we have.
Right.
And secondly, it needs to be something that we consider significant, but also that we can care for properly. We offered a 6-foot map of Bath a few days ago, and I just had to say no, first of all, because we couldn't cope with it physically, but secondly, it had a fair amount of mildew and mold damage. Would have been very expensive for us to clean it up. So if we're taking something in, we have to be confident we can properly care for it as stewards for the people of Steuben, but also the state of New York.
So maybe if someone has a donation like that, to contact you.
It's a good idea to get in touch first, yes.
Okay, great. Well, Kirk Haas has been our guest. Thanks so much for being on the program this morning.
Okay, thank you, Frank.
Of course. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Stay with us. Thank you again to Kirk Haas for being our guest. I'm telling you, I know it sounds like I'm making it up. I'm not. I look forward to that newsletter. As soon as it comes out, I read it front to back. It really is a magazine. I would recommend, like he said, $20. $20, you sign up and become a member of the Steuben County Historic Society. So thank you to Kirk House. As I mentioned at the beginning of the program, we have a busy week next week. Caleb Slater will be our guest. He's candidate for New York State Senate District 48. That's a little out of our area, but the reason we're having him on, he's a native of Dundee, and his parents live in Corning. We're going to talk about his campaign and how his goal is to turn that seat Republican. Tuesday, Pat Kane, you know him. You've seen him play out, I'm sure, on numerous occasions. We're going to talk about his music, but also about his goal of bringing back the history of the Grange Halls. And he has a very active one in Addison. We'll hear all about that on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, Ed Brophy, he's the director of the International Boxing Hall of Fame. They have their induction ceremony coming up in just a little bit, so we're going to talk to him about that. And on Thursday, Bath Mayor Mike Sweet, and on Friday, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. So, as always, if you have questions for any of those guests, here is the best way to reach us. We're going to go back to talking about Title 42. Let me grab my paperwork here. But I wanted to remind you, before we dive back into the nitty-gritty, we have a couple of events coming up. Actually, I'll talk about that in just a little bit because I don't have that screen up yet. But let's go back to Title 42. Here we go. A busload of migrants from Texas arrived at Vice President Kamala Harris's residence in Washington, D.C. on Thursday. This has kind of been a trend, something that they've been doing for a while to essentially raise awareness. More than 30 migrants, men, women, and children, mostly from Venezuela, were dropped off outside the U.S. Naval Observatory, which hosts the official residence of the Vice President. The outlet reports that the bus was the second to arrive at the Naval Observatory in less than 24 hours, with the first vehicle dropping off almost 40 individuals. Texas has been busing migrants to Harris's house and other liberal enclaves, it says here, again from the New York Post, since last year in an effort to demonstrate the challenge that border states face due to the immigration crisis and dispute the Biden administration's claim that the border is secure. And they've continued to say that. Even though the president says, yes, there's going to be chaos for a while, they continue to say the border is secure. And when they're asked about, well, then why are you putting more federal troops at the border? Again, just to do not federal troops, what was it, the National Guard? Or it was someone in the armed forces saying, well, we need them for paperwork and that, but there's nothing that isn't secure at the border. We're just sending them down for paperwork. It's just, I don't want to say outright lies, but anybody with their eyes, again, I don't know why this continues to happen. Same with bail reform. Never mind what you're seeing. No, there's no crime. No, there's no issue at the border. So this is Texas's way of kind of highlighting the real concern. And you feel bad for these border states, but it's like New York City saying, well, we can't handle it. We can't handle this influx. So what we're going to do is send it to upstate areas that don't have the infrastructure, that don't have just the setup to handle it. And that's why Chemung County Executive Chris Moss declared that state of emergency just yesterday or the day before. So Governor Hochul, we'll get that. Well, I don't have that up. But New York State officials are trying to find additional sites for housing migrants, after New York City has said, we just can't handle it. But again, if New York City can't handle it, do you think, you name it, well, Dundee, Addison, are they going to be able to handle it? Governor Hochul told reporters Tuesday she continues to back New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who has announced plans to voluntarily move 300 migrants to Rockland and Orange counties, a move that is being met with legal challenges already. There's a lot of stress involved in this, said Governor Hochul. So yes, he's taking the unprecedented action, but these are unprecedented times. It's really important that we pull together as a state and deal with the times that we're in. Because of these failed policies of the border, essentially open, porous borders, it has now forced Democrat leaders to not address the issue, but address it in their states like this. I have not seen Hochul call out Biden and say, secure the border. So now we all, according to her, have to pull together as a state and deal with this because of the policies of her party. But at the same time, Hochul also said the reaction from officials in Rockland and Orange counties are understandable, given the, quote, stress they're under. a little different than yesterday, suggesting that it was perhaps unconstitutional. So you've got these sanctuary cities who are very happy to virtue sing. I knew I was going to screw that up. Virtue signal. They were very happy to do that. And see, look at us. We're sanctuary cities. But then, with everything that comes with that, and they can't handle it, now what are they doing? They're getting overstressed. Now, I don't know if specifically Rockland and Orange counties were sanctuary cities or counties, but just a lot of these places are overwhelmed because of the failed policies. So Governor Hochul did not give details, and this is important, on which locations in New York State are being considered for this. And I think that's why Executive Moss was very smart to be proactive on this and to declare the state of emergency. I don't know which direction Hochul will go down, if she's already suggesting it's unconstitutional for counties to do that. We'll see if she wants to take up that legal action, and that'll be interesting. When we come back, I'm going to tell you what our Congressman Nick Langworthy is doing to help secure the border. That's coming up in just a moment, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and what a beautiful day it is on Marcus Street in Corning. So Congressman Nick Langworthy yesterday voted to pass H.R. 2, which is Secure the Border Act of 2023. Now, what this bill does is a comprehensive bill, and it specifically does the following, okay? Force the Biden administration to restart construction of the border wall. Good. And by the way, this, if I'm not mistaken, where was it? Yes, it passed the House yesterday 219 to 213, but I'll continue. 2, deploy technology to the southern and northern border. 3, increase the number of Border Patrol agents and provide bonus pay. Very nice. Require transparency regarding illegal crossing from the Department of Homeland Security. Strengthen current law to protect unaccompanied children from human trafficking, of course, and catch and release, and abuse of executive immigration authority, and strengthen and streamline, I am having tongue twisted day, strengthen and streamline the asylum process. This is what the congressman had to say about, here we go. What is currently a crisis at the southern border is about to turn into a 5-alarm inferno after Title 42 expires tonight. So this obviously came out just yesterday. The Biden administration is the best thing to happen to Mexican cartels, and their refusal to shut down the scourge of fentanyl and human trafficking at our open border is putting every single American citizen at risk. Mr. President, you must act. Yeah, the fentanyl issue, of course, I remember just a while back where many politicians were kind of laughing at the idea that these were related. Of course they are related. When you have open, porous borders, what is coming across the border? Fentanyl, but what else? You have to ask yourself that question. Title 42 has stopped more than 2 million migrants from coming across the border. Congressman Langworthy highlighted the growing crisis in New York that will be I'm going to give up, at the midnight repeal that is expected to cause a drastic increase of migrants into upstate communities. A group of bipartisan county executives across New York are issuing state of emergencies. And we mentioned that with Chemung County Executive Chris Moss. Yeah, you have to put up these state of emergencies because otherwise, look, Governor Hochul is looking for a place to move the migrants from New York City saying they can't handle it. But I don't want to keep belaboring this point, but if New York City cannot handle it, what makes them believe that a rural area will have the resources, will have the infrastructure to handle it? It is, I don't know. It's a frustrating time, and I think that's why, well, on the New York Post, and I'm going to get to that after the commercial break, but they said Biden's only priority is to essentially let them all in. But then we're told, never mind the videos, never mind the numbers you're seeing, never mind what ICE is telling us or what the Border Patrol is telling us, the border's secure. Never mind that to expect chaos. As the president said, the border is secure. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to wrap up this discussion. Hopefully I can stop getting my tongue all twisted up. We'll be right back. We got to take a short break. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're talking about the end of Title 42, which ended last night at midnight. Now, according to the New York Post, that Biden's only priority is to admit them all. Their only priority in this administration, according to the Post editorial board, is to admit every illegal migrant they can. The latest surrender? The administration is just letting everyone go in areas where holding facilities are overcrowded. How many holding facilities aren't overcrowded? With a stern note telling them to report to some ICE office within a couple of months, or maybe file an asylum claim by mail. And we mentioned earlier in the program, well, yeah, your court date is 2035. These mass releases began before the end of Title 42. Wow, and that Title 42 was the last little bit of restraint. They're calling it parole, since catch and release doesn't sound good on a press release. So now they're calling it parole instead of catch and release. Keep that in mind, because we just heard from Congressman Nick Langworthy, who said and catch and release. Well, they're going to, as typical Washington fashion, oh, it's not catch and release, it's parole now. Okay. Why not just stop the line at the border until you have room? You know, maybe secure the border? Only because waving everybody through is their ultimate goal, according to the New York Post editorial board. It says that you've got Homeland Security boss, Mayor Orcus, talking about the barbed wire fences, saying, I'm going to leave it to our Department of Justice to speak to the lawfulness or lack thereof of those actions, meaning they don't even want the barbed wire at certain crossing spots. If he thought his job was to keep people from crossing illegally, a simple thanks, National Guardsmen, Texas National Guardsmen, for putting up that barbed wire fence. That he instead all but called it illegal shows the reverse and reveals the perverse priorities of this administration. Yeah, that's why they keep saying that the border is under control, that no, everything's secure at the border, because in their mind it is. An open and porous border is fine. From the outset, this shady administration's only goal has been to admit as many people as stealthily and speedily as possible while avoiding the bad optics of migrants held in detention facilities or under bridges. There's a reason why this is national news, and even, well, let's face it, even some liberal outlets or liberal politicians are saying we can't handle this. Like New York City, I mean, Governor Hochul not criticizing the failed policies of the administration, but saying that we can't handle the influx. So we're going to talk about a couple other issues, because we're already wrapping up. It's almost the top of the hour. That's unbelievable. We are moving fast. So let's take another short break, and then that'll be our last break, and we'll wrap things up here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We're just about out of time, but sometimes you can't make this up. George Santos, we haven't really talked about it that much this week. Obviously, the media, pardon me, who was it? Mark Molinaro, the former gubernatorial candidate, said that we've got the debt ceiling, we've got all these major issues that we have to deal with. And here we are talking about a guy who shouldn't be in Congress yet again. But he returned to the Capitol yesterday, following his arrest the day earlier. He's out on bail. His arrest for unemployment fraud. He came back just in time to vote on a bill dealing with unemployment fraud. Yes, it could not have been scripted better. And it's been a circus anyway. Why not, right? He was indicted on 13 counts. He has pleaded not guilty and vowed to fight the charges in court. Okay. On Thursday, moments after entering the building, the congressman was bombarded by questions about whether it was right for him to vote on such a bill while he himself was under criminal indictment for an alleged violation of that statute. The House is set to vote on that legislation this afternoon. What's more, Mr. Santos is co-sponsor of the legislation being introduced, which would strengthen America's fraud laws by extending the statute of limitations for such investigations and providing more incentives for states to investigate and uncover fraud. He responded to a reporter, well, allegations are not proof, right, Rachel? They yelled at the reporter. Yes, you cannot make this up. Let's go through a couple things happening this weekend before we go, because we talked about this a few times this week, and it's going to be a great event, and there's an update on some of the guests. There you go. Unity in the Community Rally. Dr. Coleman will be the MC for that. It's this Saturday, May 13th, 2 to 3 p.m., right in Centerway Square here in Corning. Here is the star-studded lineup. Georgia Verdier, president of the Elmira Corning branch of the NAACP. Mayor of Corning, Bill Bolin, our first guest on the televised version of Frankly Speaking. Mayor of Elmira, Dan Mandel. Sarah Latin, the chief of staff for Senator Tom O'Mara. Dr. Carol Wright, president and executive director of Corning Museum of Glass. Gwen Bain, business project manager, Corning Incorporated. Dr. William Mullaney, the president of SUNY Corning Community College. Reverend Connie Seifert, I hope I'm saying that right, but I doubt I am, president of the League of Women Voters, Stu Ben in Chemung counties, and pastor at the First United Methodist Church in Corning, Sheriff James Allard and Sheriff Bill Schramm. So that's going to be an amazing event, and as we say on the program so often, it's all about the community, and thank you to Dr. Coleman for holding the Unity in the Community Rally this Saturday from 2 to 3. Before that, let's say you go to that rally. I hope that you all do. You can also, and we talked about this earlier in the week, you can help clean up Elmira. Now, I don't know what's wrong today, boy. Elmira Downtown Development is announcing the downtown cleanup. We had a guest earlier this week. It's going to be at Wisner Park. It starts at 9 a.m. It goes till noon, so you can do both. You go help clean up Elmira, and then you come down here for the community rally. Look at how much you're doing for the community. So meet at Wisner Park at 9 a.m. on Saturday. So, find out more, by the way, at elmiradowntown.com. So this, you know what? Even with the tongue ties and even with the coughing, I would say this has been a fantastic show. I want to thank Kirk House for being our guest on the program. If you are a resident of Steuben County, or even if you're not, if you're a history buff, join the Steuben County Historical Society. Again, here is our lineup for next week. Caleb Slater, the candidate for Senate, District 48. On Tuesday, Pat Kane. Wednesday, Ed Brophy, he's the director of the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Thursday, Bath Mayor Mike Sweet. And then Friday, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. So if you have any questions for our guests, or if there are any guests you'd like to see on the program, please contact me there. Boy, it's hard to believe. That went fast. Thank you again, everybody who joined us. We'll be back on Monday morning. I look forward to it already. I say that every Friday, but I can't wait because we have such a busy week, as you saw with our guests, and we're going to have so much to talk about. So much breaking news, and this has been a fun, busy week. And I thank you for joining us. And I thank you for making this a part of your routine. And as I said, we'll be back on Monday morning starting at 7. Have a great weekend, everyone.